Okay, so if you have blocks, you grab onto blocks, put them to the side, and if you don't, you don't, and that's okay. We're going to start on our backs today, so you're going to go ahead and lay on down. I suggest active or constructive rest. That's when the feet are walked out wide, inner knees to touch, and then let yourself widen out on the mat. This is an especially wonderful position if you ever have low back tension, if you're standing or sitting a lot. And there's a magical distance of feet away from each other and feet away from seat, so that the legs are not actually doing any work, but rather just resting on each other like you would build a house of cards. And from here, left to right shoulder, nice and broad, let them land. And right away, start to fill up the bottoms of the lungs, as if you could breathe into the back of the body, down into the floor. And lengthen the exhale out. Let the eyes close if that's comfortable for you. Inhaling into the bottoms of the lungs. And exhaling for length. And as you inhale into the bottoms of the lungs, feel like you don't just fill up the front of the body, but the sides and the back. And all the while you're focusing on your breathing and you're directing your attention inward, see if you can soften into the floor just a bit more. Notice if there's places where you're unnecessarily holding, if you're anticipating. See if you can settle into this moment as if this were the only thing we were going to do together. We spend so much of our lives and oftentimes so much of our practice anticipating the next move from a teacher. So I implore you to, every time we find ourselves in a moment of stillness or static holding, to act as if this were the only place we had to go. So instead of forward motion, whether it be with our bodies or our minds, could it be an inward stillness, an inward even motion there? A couple more breaths here. Settling in, dropping down. And from here, start to walk your feet long on the mat. Let the feet go nice and wide. Bring yourself into a nice starfish. Arms out wide like you're doing the YMCA. Ankles out wide, maybe the width of the mat. And from here, just feel like that from navel outward into all four limbs, you could get longer. So the past month, maybe 2 months or so, what is time anymore anyways, we've been talking about the diagonals of the body, right? Mapping the internal so that we can sort of figure out where center is, so we can expand, so we can create circumference, right? Spherical movement. So feel as if from not just belly button outward you're moving, but maybe from left heel to right hand you're moving, from right heel to left hand, from pubic bone to crown of head, from left rib to right rib, from front of chest to back of chest. Imagine all those places could expand and you could take up more space. And take a couple breaths here, just sort of working that internal sensation of moving opposites away from each other, moving front and back away from each other, left to right away from each other. And more than anything, a lot of you know that I get really specific about the body, but more than anything, I'd like you to take up more space. And if you identify as female in this class, I could probably talk to you for like 7 hours about how we're socialized to not take up space. So take up even more space now. Get wider, get longer, get broader, get fuller with the breath. And then release all of that activity and just let yourself soften. And if the eyes opened, let them close again. And let all of the activity now just be in the breath, filling up the backs of the lungs. And lengthening the exhale out. From here, bend one knee and then the next, and then draw one knee and the next into the chest. Give the knees a squeeze. Maybe you want to rock side to side or roll the knees in circles, whatever feels nice to you. And then roll the knees into center. Flex into the feet. You can keep your hands on your knees for right now. And imagine that you could push the feet away from you while keeping this 90 degree at the knees. For me, my arms go pretty much all the way to straight, keeping the kneecaps in my hands here. And flex into the feet. Imagine the center of the soles of the feet are pressing towards the wall that's in front of you. And then from here, drop the hands down on the floor. Very slowly lengthen the right leg up towards the sky. And then the left leg up towards the sky. And imagine, so for me, I'm tipping the heels now towards my face to find this sort of place where the ankles are directly over the hips. And there's a bend in my knees here. If you have like, sort of go-go elastic hamstrings and it feels okay to completely straighten the legs, you do so. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So again, ankles, imagine they're over hips. Disregard sort of straightening the knees. And then from here, just as we have been doing, you'll start to turn the toes out and away from each other. So externally rotate the thigh bones. The heels point inward towards each other. And then draw them back to neutral and internally rotate. So pigeon toe the feet here. And then come back to center, neutral, externally rotate. Now start from here. You're going to bend into the knees and imagine you could draw the knees into the chest. The back of the pelvis may lift up as you start to draw the knees into the chest even more. We're still externally rotated. Flex into the feet. Start to reach the hands towards the bottom of your mat. So curl the head, neck, and chest up. Nice and awkward for a Tuesday morning, right? And then take your hands and reach them up towards the sky. Maybe you reach them through the gateway of the legs, or just play with what happens with the positioning of the hands. Some of you may draw the knees in a little bit closer, right? Pretend maybe you were going towards crow. Maybe you're going towards malasana, low squat. Good. From here, slowly lengthen legs up towards the sky, drop the head, neck, and chest down, and then slowly drop the legs down in one unit. They come all the way down to the ground. Widen out the feet. Bring the arms up and overhead. Big Y like YMCA. And then again, expand. So feel yourself take up more space. Left hand to right heel. Right hand to left heel, front to back body, top to bottom, pelvic floor, crown of the head. Maybe you roll the ankles out, right? This is just a sort of practice of taking up space and feeling expansion. Take 2 more full breaths here. And imagine you could imprint in your mind what it feels like to take up space. All right, very slowly, one knee and the next into the chest. Give them a squeeze. Bring the hands onto the kneecaps. Flex into the feet. Press the soles of the feet away so that the knees come to 90 degrees again. Right, watch what happens with the low back if you pull the knees in and press them away. We come into our natural curvature here, and then imagine you could cement around the natural curvature. Right? There's a lot of this stuff about pressing the low back down, Just don't worry about that and see if you can cement the torso as is. This time we're going to step the right foot on the earth, lengthen the left leg up towards the sky. Flex into the left foot. Again, there can be a bend of the knee so that the heel comes over the hip. And I realize that that's like a lot of sort of imagining from outside of your body, but we do have screens near us. So if you do see yourself in your screen, maybe you can use that as a reference. So turn the left toes out to the left. From here, cross your left ankle over your right thigh. Do not use your hands here. Using your mind's eye, direct the left knee away from you. From here, come onto the ball of the right foot. And then slowly draw the right knee into the chest, flex into the right foot, and imagine it's that same position that you had with your hand on the kneecap there. And then there's all sorts of things we could do here. So right now, I'd like you not to use your hands on your legs. And I'd like you to bring your hands to behind your neck. Interlace the hands so you're cupping sort of the occiput, right? That ridge in the back of the head where the neck joins the skull. And pull the head, neck, and chest up so you can look at your legs. And imagine that left knee from right hip moves away from each other. So left knee, right hip moves away from each other. Right knee, left hip moves away from each other. Notice how much sort of internal expansion you might feel when you're directing yourself in that way. Left knee, right hip moves away. Right knee, left hip moves away. Good. Now, if this feels like tons of work and you want to stay here, you stay here. If you don't want to work in the abdomen, you drop your head down, right? It's so freaking hot out that I want you to really direct yourself in terms of temperature. Maybe you curl the head, neck, and chest up even more and you reach your hands down towards the bottom of the mat. Maybe you lengthen your right leg up towards the sky. If you lengthen your right leg up towards the sky, I want you to still direct left knee away from right hip, right knee away from left hip, and then don't work so much that you lose the breath. Regardless of where you're going with the posture right now, right, this internal expansion is the point of reference I want you to use as you're moving. Take 2 more full breaths here. Can you breathe in the same way that we were breathing before we did literally anything with our bodies? Good. Very slowly release the left ankle off the thigh, lengthen the legs up towards the sky. Very slowly lengthen the legs down towards the ground. 1 full unit. The slower you go, the harder it is. Pick your poison. Let the legs land when they land. Widen them out. Go for full expansion again. Big Y, starfish, whatever lands for you in your mind. Expand. Take up space. And move the breath accordingly. Very slowly, 1 knee and the next comes into the chest. Give them a squeeze. This time, step your feet hips width distance apart and lift your hips up into a low bridge. Lengthen the front of the body, lengthen the back of the body. So less about the back bend, more about length. Imagine the inner knees could move away from the crown of the head. Imagine the heels could traction towards the seat. In your mind's eye, recall the rotation of the thigh bones when we had our feet up towards the sky, and can the thigh bones stay in neutral? And then very slowly release the spine down. Lengthen the right leg up towards the sky, flex into the heel. Turn the right toes out to the right. Cross the right ankle over the left thigh, and again, do not use your hands here. As you move the right thigh, right knee away from the head. Come onto the ball of the left foot. Flex into the left foot as you pick the knee up. Imagine the left knee, we're in that same position when we had our hand on the kneecap, so maybe 90 degrees. Bring the hands interlaced behind the occiput the non-habitual way. So you've got a habit there if you didn't know it. And then curl the head, neck, and chest up so you can look at your legs. Right knee to left line, expand away from each other. Right knee, left. Did I say left thigh? I meant left hip. Right knee, left hip, expand away from each other. I guess left thigh would work too. So 2 points of contact, expand. Left knee, right hip, expand. Left knee, right hip, expand. Good. And now from here, we've got 5, 6 breaths doing as you wish. Maybe you lengthen the left leg up towards the sky. Notice how that takes you out of that mapping. Maybe you drop the head down. Maybe you reach the arms farther for more sort of work in the abdomen, but keep that internal reference point. Right knee, left thigh, expand. Left knee, right, I keep saying left thigh. Left hip, right knee, expand. Left knee, right hip, away. Flex into the feet. Breathe as if we were breathing before, right? Before we moved, before we started mapping the body, before we created heat. And very slowly pick the right ankle off the left thigh. Lengthen up both legs. Nice and slow. All the way down to the ground, the legs go. Widen the ankles out, widen the arms out. Again, expand, take up space. Stretch as much or as little as you need to feel like you are actually inhabiting more space than you would normally. Shake out the legs. If you want to roll around the ankles and the wrists, you can do so. And during your next exhale, draw the knees into the chest. And then step the feet down. Press into the feet, lift the hips up into your bridge again. And now here, imagine really that the breath could move downward towards the ground and upward towards the sky, left to right, top to bottom. Nice and slow, drop the spine down, vertebra by vertebra. Draw the knees into the chest, excuse me, and make your way into a tabletop as you wish. If you want to rock and roll, you can rock and roll. If you'd like to roll over to one side, roll over to one side. When you get there, place the hands underneath the shoulders, close the eyes, and then start to move through cat and cow as you wish. And as you move through cat and cow, I'd like you again to imagine that you could take up more space. And so whether that's an internal feeling or an external movement, that's where I'd like you to go. Take up more space than usual. And as you breathe, imagine again that you're filling up the backs of the lungs. And as you fill up the backs of the lungs, maybe you direct the backs of the lungs, not just towards the sky, but left and right. If you're going to go in sort of a cyclical pattern with your cat and cow, you can start to do that. If you want to flip your wrists, you may do so. If you want to move away from cat and cow entirely, you may do so. Several more breaths, doing as you wish. And maybe it's just rotating around in circles to get the wrists warmed up. And if your wrists are flipped, flip them back. Directly the shoulders, the toes. Hover the knees off the mat for a moment. So press into the hands, hover the knees. Imagine you could drag the heels of the palms towards the toes, toes towards the heels of the palms, and then start to sink the hips back in space like you're going to child's pose, but the knees are still lifted. So child's pose, but the knees are still lifted. Drop the head, look down at the feet. Start to walk the hands back towards the feet. Keep the heels dropping, heels dropping, heels dropping. Walk the hands back towards the feet so much that now you're in a little low squat. Yeah, keep the hips dropped, drop the hips all the way down, Kelly, yeah. So the heels are gonna be lifted, again, unless you have sort of miraculous Achilles heels or really long sort of tendons and ligaments and muscles in the backs of your legs. So from here, draw the hands out a little bit farther. Stay on fingertips if possible. Start to come high onto the balls of the feet, and notice how that changes your posture. So come high onto the balls of the feet, and start to drop the heels down, but keep everything else as is. So it's just an action of the foot. Come high onto the balls of the feet. Good. And then drop the heels. Yeah, and for some of you, it might mean you rock a little bit farther forward. Come high onto the balls of the feet. And then drop the heels. One more time. Come high onto the balls of the feet. Drop the heels down. Good. This time, come high onto the balls of the feet. If this is not sustainable for you, right? If coming onto the balls of the feet is, dare I say, painful, then just find the sort of place of flexion that's okay for you. But if coming high onto the balls of the feet is okay, you know, you feel like you're working, that's great. Start to widen the knees out. Maybe they kind of unstick from your armpits like they just did from mine. And then walk the hands back. As you walk the hands back, come higher onto the fingertips. And then start to send the sits bones towards the heels. So sits bones towards heels. Maybe you bring one hand up. Draw the navel towards the spine. Maybe you draw the other hand up. This is kind of an insane thing to do in the first like 10 minutes of class, but you know, it's an insane time. Yeah, look at you guys. Good. Yeah. Good. Pelvic floor down, crown of the head up. Start to lengthen the spine even more. If you lose your balance and you come out, you come back in. It's a lot of work. Good. Pull the navel in, crown of the head up. Nice, everyone. Good. Really slowly bring your hands back. Start to lengthen the legs, drop the heels, come into a forward fold. Walk the feet out to a hips width distance apart. That's 2 fists width distance. Bend the knees, shake it out, sway side to side, whatever feels best for you right now. Let the breath move as it was moving when we first began. Nice and deep, filling up the back of the lungs. From here, bend into the knees just a touch more. Let the spine be really slack like a towel after a shower. And then start to roll up vertebra by vertebra. Keep the knees bent here. And as you roll up, let the back of the spine articulate. Eventually you'll come to stand and you step down into the center of the feet to lift the crown of the head, lift the sternum, come into a little back bend. Maybe the chin lifts, but let it be the sternum that lifts, that directs the chin upward. And then start to bend into the knees, tuck the chin, and round the spine and start to go down the way you came up. And as we roll up and down in the spine, we're going to do this twice more. And I'd like you to go slower than you'd like to. I'd like you to also think about filling up and taking up more space, whether it be with the breath or your actual physical body. And as you move in this way, again, the breath is expanding outward. You are expanding outward. You're also going nice and slow. The last time you roll up, you will pause there. Don't feel rushed by the sound of my voice or the idea of a destination, but once you're there, you'll close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, now again, imagine the breath that could move from the crown of the head to the pelvic floor, from the front to the back of the body, from the left to the right side, waist, side, ribs. Take one more full breath here with eyes closed. Gently blink the eyes open. Inhale, sweep the arms back out and wide. So I'd like you to feel like you can take up more space backwards as well as sideways and then up towards the sky. And then as you exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale up half the way. As you exhale, tent onto fingertips. Come high onto the balls of the feet. Really slowly squat down again. So send the knees towards the armpits, drop the butt. If you'd like to widen out the knees again for a little play with balance, you might want to, you might not want to. If you don't want to do this with forward facing dog, if you want to take a moment to sort of play with balance, maybe draw the knees together, maybe you draw the knees apart, maybe you lift the heels, maybe you drop them. Right, so eventually we'll land in downward facing dog. So you can do this for a couple breaths, you can do this for 5 breaths, you can be like, I'm out of here, I'm going to down dog now. But eventually we'll make our way to downward facing dog. When you make your way to downward facing dog, right? Again, don't feel rushed by the sound of my voice, but when you get there, just paw the hands out. And as you paw the hands out, maybe play with that coming onto the balls of the feet and then dropping the heels down. Oh my God, I see Kari doing a down dog. Well, you guys are doing a down dog. This is the light of my life, is seeing dogs do down dog at the same time as my students. Good. And then start to bend into the knees just a bit more. Bend into the knees, look forward. Come forward, plank pose. When you come forward, plank pose, start to feel from your left shoulder to your right heel lengthens and draws away from each other. Left shoulder, right heel. And then right shoulder, left heel, draw away from each other. So that's that diagonal sensation again. Good. Bend the knees, come up and back, downward facing dog. Press into the index finger knuckle points of the hands. Slowly walk the hands back towards the feet. Drop the hips as you go. Drop the heels as you go. Come into that low squat again. Now, the sort of capacity for a low squat is you, right? If you want to bring your knees out wide, you bring your knees out wide. If you don't want to bring them out wide, you don't want to bring them out wide. And eventually we'll all find our hands here. I think I can see on the iPad that you guys are all able to balance. I do see your head, Gary, so I'm guessing you're balancing. Oh, yep, there your hands are. Hey. Okay, from here, take an inhale. As you exhale, I want you to think about driving your feet down as you come to stand, reach the arms up. Drive the heels down, come to stand all the way up. You can do it. You can do it. Yes, nice, Debbie. Nice, Pat. Awesome. Inhale up here, lift the heart. And then as you exhale, pull the navel in and send the knees forward, drop the hips all the way down, like you're dropping down an elevator shaft. Nice and terrifying. Good. Plant the hands, walk forward, downward facing dog. Come forward, plank pose. In plank pose, feel that same sensation as the legs, as sort of the locus of movement. Come back into your down dog, but now bend your knees, sink your hips down, look forward, and imagine that you were in that low squat and you're coming to stand even here. Let the legs be bringing you forward into a plank pose. So just a different orientation with gravity. Bend the knees, send the hips back, really low sort of down dog squat, and then come forward, plank pose. All right. Once more, bend the knees, sink the hips back. Just as before, when we came from squat to stand, you come from here to plank. Boop. And then drop the knees down, sink the hips back, come into child's pose, embryo, or sit on the shins. If you're sitting on the shins, close your eyes. And in this position, bring the awareness back into breathing, into the backs of the lungs. Bring your awareness back into taking up space. for an expansion from inner to outward. From here, slowly make your way into downward facing dog. Everyone had all of their pets visiting them just now. It was really great. So in down dog, come into your sort of regulation length, right? What feels comfortable to you. Bend the knees a touch, and then lift the right leg up towards the sky. And for just a moment, go sort of all over the place, right? Do as you wish. Maybe you bend the knee, open the hip. Maybe you straighten the left leg. Maybe you twirl around the right ankle, right? Just explore. And then very slowly bend into the left knee. And start to look back with your eyes and find your right foot with your eyes and flex all 5 toes down towards the ground. So you're squaring the hips off. And then pigeon toe the right foot so that you're internally rotating the right leg and the right hip will go off to the right. And come back to neutral to keep the hips as they are. Drive the right knee through a knee to nose crunch and step the right foot forward. As you step the right foot forward, step it over to the left. So that we're crossing our legs in our lunge. 10 toe to fingertips and draw them out wide to 10 and 2. As you draw the fingertips out wide to 10 and 2, bring the right hand to the right thigh, pick up your chest, and bring the right knee perhaps to the center of the chest. Yeah, just as best you can. Yeah, shaking your head. And slowly drop the back knee down. Press down into the top of the back foot. Walk the hands back. Step the center of the right foot down. Draw the right knee to the left and come up to a low lunge. Little wobble. Little wobble wobble. Put more weight into the right foot. Put more weight into the top of the back foot. And then rise the arms up. Imagine that your legs were scissors and the pelvis were sort of that center fulcrum. And imagine the right leg, the right scissor draws back as the left draws forward. Good. And if your hands are up, start to just turn the chest, turn the heart over towards the right. So heart, chest, turn to the right. If you'd like to open your arms, you can open your arms. If balancing is tough for you today, right, like it is for me, maybe you bring your hands to your hips. Think about centering the right foot down into the ground as you just turn, turn, turn. And then very slowly direct yourself back to center. Bring the hands out wide. Walk the right foot out to the right. Tuck under the back toes. Walk the hands over to the left. Walk the hands down the left-hand side of your mat. Walk the hands down towards the left foot. Bend into the left knee. Bring the right leg towards straight. Maybe you pick up your heel. Maybe you drop low to a Cossack squat. It's up to you. Right? Just do what feels nice here. Yeah, so not a lunge facing the left foot, but a wide-legged forward fold, and the foot is this Cossack squat. I'm not really sure how else to describe it in terms of yoga terms. Good. And then come back through center, find a wide-legged forward fold. And when you find your wide-legged forward fold, bring your right hand underneath your face, maybe 10 toe to fingertips. If you have a block handy, you can bring a block here. Bring left hand to your sacrum. And with your left hand on your sacrum, just bring your left elbow to point up towards the ceiling with your mind's eye. It may not actually point up towards the sky. And as you point the left elbow up towards the sky, let it lift your left shoulder. Let it lift your gaze to the left. And maybe you lift your left arm. And I say maybe for a reason. Take one more full inhale here. Exhale, release, look down. Walk the hands back to the right foot. Turn the right and left toes towards the top of the mat. Step up, forward fold. When you forward fold, find a 2 fists width distance apart. Bend the knees. Drop the head. If you want to shake it out, you can shake it out. Let the breath be expansive. Bend into knees a little bit more. Roll yourself up to stand. When you roll yourself up to stand, Feel the heart lift, lift, lift. And then start to tuck the chin again, round the shoulders, bend the knees, and find yourself all the way down. And you find yourself all the way down, bend the knees a little bit more. Bring the hands out in front of you, tent under fingertips. Send the knees forward, send the hips downward, come into your low squat. Come into the low squat that feels best for you, where you can catch a little balance. Breathe nice and deep. Imagine you could expand outward in all directions here. And then very slowly, hands down to the floor, step back, plank pose. From plank pose, find downward facing dog. In down dog, lift the left leg up towards the sky. Go as you wish with the leg first. So maybe you lift it up, maybe you open the hip, maybe you bend the knee, maybe you circle the ankle, right? Go all over the place. Start to bend into the right knee, that's the standing leg. Use your eyes to find your left foot. Drop all 5 left toes down towards the ground, squaring the hip off. Pigeon toe the foot so that you send the hips off to the left just a touch. Bring the thigh bone back to neutral. Send it through a knee to nose crunch. Step the left foot forward. As you step the left foot forward, toe heel it over to the right. And when you toe heel it over to the right, maybe you have to use your left hand to pick up your chest, to bring your chest onto the left thigh. Bring the hands out, 1 and 2. So we're crossing the lungs. We're crossing the legs in the lunge. Send the back heel back, send the front knee forward. Slowly drop the back knee down. Untuck the toes, press really firmly into the top of the back foot. Almost as if you could lift that knee because you're pressing into the top of the foot so much. So that's just as much our anchor as the front foot is. Walk the hands back, step down into the center of the left foot, and slowly rise. And as you rise, notice how the left foot wants to just roll onto the outer edge of the foot. Press the big toe down. Maybe reach the arms up, right? Maybe you're constantly sort of readjusting with the furniture around you, catching yourself on the ground. Good, nice pat. Awesome, let the breath be expansive. And then start to draw the heart over to the left. And when you start to draw the heart over to the left, notice how the left knee wants to go with you. Keep driving the left knee to the right. Remember, your legs are the scissors, the pelvis is the fulcrum. Good, yeah, maybe the arms drop out into a T. Maybe they don't. Maybe the hands are on the hips. Slowly bring yourself back to center. Bring the hands back down. Walk the left foot over to the left. Tuck under the back toes. Start to turn the toes over to the right. Walk your hands down the right hand side of your mat. Come into a wide-legged forward fold, then start to bend into the right knee. Walk the hands towards the right foot. You can play with a Cossack squat, right? Dropping the hips down. I have sort of like a physical inability to keep my heel down. Some people teach it as like, that's the only way. I disagree. You can pick the heel up. Right, play with the rotation of the left thigh bone here. Again, take up more space, right? Feel the breath moving outward, go left to right moving. Come back into your wide-legged forward fold. Bring the left underneath your face, either on fingertips, flat palmed, or on the block. The important thing is that you feel space here. Bring the right hand to the sacrum. Right elbow brings it up towards the sky as it lifts the right shoulder. Maybe it lifts the gaze towards the right. Maybe you lift your right arm up towards the sky. Breathe nice and full here. Imagine with the breath you could take up more space. And then slowly Come down, unwind, walk the hands towards the left foot, turn the left toes towards the front, step up, forward fold. When you're forward fold, take it out, sway as you wish. And then bend into the knees, allow yourself to slowly roll up. Slowly roll up. When you get to stand, lift the heart, lift the gaze. This time reach the arms back, circle them out, wide, reach up. And then exhale, hands through heart center, come high onto the balls of the feet, send the knees forward, and drop slowly into your low squat. Boop. Nice job, everyone. Good, maybe knees go out, maybe they don't go out. So there's an option here to play with crow pose, bringing the hands down to the floor, pulling the knees in towards the armpit. There's a couple different ways you could go, right? Knees nesting into the armpit here, outward, squeezing in. Regardless if you're just playing with balancing in your low squat, look forward, Kelly, as opposed to straight down. So a lot of us will look straight down to pick the hips up, which is fine, but when down, it becomes harder to stay. So if you're forward, maybe you catch a little air and you can play with your structure. And if you're like, why the hell would I be doing that? Then you're just in your squat. Good. Regardless of where you are, step back, downward facing dog. If you're someone who shoots back to chaturanga, you do so with care. Again, if that elicits a why the hell would I do that response, then you know that you don't do that. Good. From downward facing dog, lift the right leg up. You can go as high as you want to go and then start to bend into the left knee, neutralize the femur bone, right hip goes off to the right. Right knee comes through a knee to nose crunch, step the right foot forward. This time step it off to its own side. So find the left foot and land the left heel down. I like to step it in just a touch. And so we're in warrior 2 legs. Bring the hands out wide, 10 and 2. Imagine that you could internally rotate the left thigh bone and externally rotate the right thigh bone here. All right, step down into the left foot as much as the right. Slowly rise up, cartwheel the hands up, warrior 2. If you've got to adjust your feet, once you come to stand, you can adjust your feet. Bring your hands to your hips and play with internally rotating left thigh and let that guide you and turn you a touch forward. And then imagine you could internally rotate the right thigh bone and let that guide you back. Internally rotate left thigh bone, let it turn you a little bit forward, off to the left. Now from here, externally rotate the right thigh bone, right? Imagine in the inside right thigh, swiping up towards the sky. Now turn the torso back to frame the left side of your mat. Bring the arms up, hook the opposite thumbs. Reach up with the crown of the head away from the pelvic floor. Now from here, start to internally rotate the left thigh bone even more. Start to turn the heart towards the front of your mat, front of your mat, front of your mat. Unstick the back heel, come high onto the back ball of the foot. Back foot, ball of the foot. And then again, start to turn the heart over towards the right. And imagine again that your legs are the scissors, pelvis is the fulcrum. Bend into the front knee, extend the back heel back in space. As you draw the heart to the right, drop the arms down in a T. From here, left hand comes down close to the right foot. So super close to the right foot. Forget about the right arm for a second. Look down at your right knee and draw it closer to your left armpit. Yeah, this is a great place for a prop if the floor seems like a really far place away. Right knee towards left armpit as you draw the gaze back towards almost the back of your room as right arm goes up towards the sky. Good. From here, look down. Right hand comes down. Left hand comes down. Step the right leg back, lift it up towards the sky. Now from here, open the hip, bend the knee. And then step the right foot down. When you step the right foot down, come forward towards plank pose. Find left shoulder to right heel. Expand, right shoulder, left heel, expand. Now imagine someone were drawing your lungs towards the top of your mat and pulling your heels away from the lungs as you come into upward facing dog on the balls of the feet. Good. From here, land the knees down, sink the hips back, child's embryo, or sit on the heels. Regardless of what posture you take, close the eyes, expand with the breath. Breathe more fully and fluidly and circumferentially. Very slowly make your way back up to downward facing dog. When you come into down dog, lift the left leg up towards the sky. If you want to go at first kind of really open and big, you go open and big and then start to bend into the right knee, neutralize the left femur bone, look forward, step forward with the left foot off to its own side. Right, find the length of your lunge first, then step your right foot down. Maybe the right toes go off to the right-hand corner of your room. Draw the left knee forward, back heel back in space. Imagine you could internally rotate the right thigh bone even here so that you can broaden your collarbones and then slowly come up warrior two. When you come up warrior two, if you need to adjust your feet when you get up here, so be it. Right, you can bring your hands to your hips. You can reach your arms out or up already, but just feel for that constant play of finding how much space you can inhabit and take up, left to right, top to bottom, front to back. Now bring the hands to the hips if they're not there already. Play with internally rotating the right so much that it turns the chest towards the right-hand corner of your room. And then internally rotate the left thigh bone and let that be turning you back to where you came from. Again, internally rotate right thigh bone, let it draw the right hip off to the right, direct you forward. And then this time, externally rotate the left thigh bone, the front leg, but direct the torso back to where it came from. Now from here, bring the arms up and overhead, interlace the non-habitual way. Crown of the head to pelvic floor, nice and long. Internally rotate the right thigh bone, and that starts to bring the chest forward, forward, forward. Very slowly unstick the back heel. You come through a high lunge, and just in the same way that we did in our low lunge, you'll turn the chest towards the left, internally rotating the right thigh bone. The legs are again now scissors, compass the fulcrum. Send the front knee forward, back heel back, internal rotation. Very slowly drop the arms down into a T. Very slowly bring the right hand down as close to the left foot as possible. This is a great time for a prop underneath your right hand. Maybe you even look down and bring your right knee closer, your left knee closer to your right armpit as the left arm comes towards the sky. And then imagine here that you could take up more space with the breath. Maybe the gaze goes towards the back end corner of your room. Breathe nice and full. Slowly look down. Left hand, right hand go off to their own side. Step back, downward facing dog with the left leg lifted. And then step the foot down, downward facing dog. Come forward to plank pose. If upward facing dog on the balls of the feet feels like too much, you drop down onto your knees, come into cow pose. If you're an upward facing dog, the lungs and the heels are in opposite directions. And then land your knees down, sink back, embryo, child's, or Vajrasana, sitting on your heels. Regardless of where you go, close the eyes. And imagine that you could take up more space. That the breath doesn't just move up and down, the left, right, forward and back. Again, this moment of stillness, imagine this were all we were doing and you could actually settle in instead of anticipating. Breath moves even wider, even longer, even steadier. From here, slowly make your way back into downward facing dog. From down dog, step your right foot forward. Find your warrior 2 feet and come up. Hi, Mom. When you come into your warrior 2, again, play with internal, external. Play with where the torso is in relation to the pelvis, whether it moves with or without. And I'm saying play and explore because I actually want you to just feel it rather than land in a specific place that I sort of say you should land in. So come into a place where you're playing and then settle in, bring the arms out wide. Maybe the gaze goes over the right hand. I honestly do not care if it does. But when you come into your place of stillness, close your eyes. If you feel like you're losing your balance when you do that, you can bring your hands to your hips. And when you close your eyes, I want you to feel like you can expand further, right to left. And maybe that means right knee to left hip expands away from each other. From top to bottom, maybe that means crown of head to pelvic floor for you. From front to back. And imagine you could take internally now in this posture. And slowly blink the eyes open. Whether the arms are up, out to the side, or on the hips, start to turn the chest towards the right, towards the top of your mat. Nice pat. Come high onto the ball of the back foot. Start to turn the chest towards the right, internally rotate the legs. Right, revisit that sort of high lunge twist with the body. And then face yourself forward. From here, the hands can come down to the floor. You can practice without hands, just stepping up and coming to stand. Nice. Inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, forward fold all the way down. When you forward fold, if you have blocks, bring your blocks nearby. If you don't have blocks, maybe you go to a piece of furniture that's, a little bit higher off the ground, maybe 2 feet off the ground. The bed behind you guys is really good. Debbie and Kelly, or the bolster's really good. So we're going to come high onto fingertips on blocks and bend our knees slightly so that our torso is now parallel to the ground. And so there's this sort of play that we need to come into where when we lengthen our legs and we lift our torso off the ground to parallel, right here, I'm using a lot of weight on my blocks to stay in this position. So I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to shift my hips back just a touch. So I'm not actually using the blocks. They're just there for reference. So you're going to find that place where you're using sort of your prop, your couch, your chair, your bed bolster as a point of reference rather than a point of extreme support. Then from here, step into the left foot and lift the right leg back in space and lift it back as such that you are lengthening the right heel and the crown of the head in opposite directions, and that the right thigh bone is not just neutral, but maybe slightly internally rotated. And then lift the chest up as if you were in cow pose. So bend the left knee even more. Let the support, the reference of your blocks, your bolster, your what have you, be what lifts the chest up. Nice. And then sink into the left leg even more, extend the right leg back even more. And imagine that the right hip and the left hip were on the same plane. Good. Maybe you press your left leg so much that you can bring the left hand to the sacrum. Maybe you bring your right hand to the sacrum, and I say maybe very intentionally. Let the back of the body expand as you expand your collarbones forward. Very slowly bend into the left knee, reach the right leg back in space, reach back into a high lunge. You can use your hands on the floor if you need to. When you come into your high lunge, lengthen the left leg and the right leg. Reach up, pubic bone to sternum lengthens, and then slowly transition back to downward facing dog. In down dog, you can stay here. If you want to come through upward facing dog in the balls of the feet, go for it. It's up to you. Good. Awesome. Left foot steps forward. Find your warrior 2 feet. Adjust yourself as you need to adjust and come up into warrior 2. And again, it's just play. It's exploration. It's finding space. It's internal, it's external, it's neutralizing, it's working. Sort of all of the angles, all of the dimensions. And then once you find your spot, you'll close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, think about left to right expanding. Yeah, if having the arms out with eyes closed is too much, you can bring your hands to your hips. But maybe it's left knee to right hip expands away from each other. Maybe it's left side rib cage to right side. Top to bottom expands, front to back expands. And again, imagine that instead of moving into the next place, that this is just what we were going to be doing for the rest of our time, and your job was just to take up more space and to breathe more fluidly. All right, very slowly blink the eyes open. Regardless of where your arms are, turn the chest back toward the top of the mat, internally rotate the right bone, pick up the back heel, come into that high twisting lunge. Left knee comes towards the right corner of your mat, internally rotating both thigh bones. Good. And then come back through center, look forward. Maybe you use your hands, maybe you don't, but step up to stand. Good. Reach the arms up. And exhale, forward fold all the way down. Again, find your blocks, or your couch, or your bed, or your coffee table. Bend into the knees so that you can put a little more weight in the feet, and the blocks serve as reference rather than super supportive. Here that you rest your torso, your spine goes. So there's a subtle background here rather than a rounding of the spine. Rather than looking straight down, look forward. Step into the right foot, lift the left foot up, and imagine the left heel and the crown of the head could move in opposite directions. Imagine the left thigh bone could be internally rotated rather than externally. Bend into the right knee and send the right knee forward as you send the left heel back in space. Let these be the front and back. Right knee forward, left heel back. Broaden the collarbones. This is the last standing pose, I promise. Good. Maybe you trust the right leg enough to bring the right hands to the sacrum. Palm flips up towards the sky. Right, and even here, just imagine left, right hip, same plane, right? You can stay here forever. Maybe left hand comes to on top of the right hand. You guys understood that, right? Crown of the head, left heel, opposite directions. Good. Start to bend into the right knee even more. Step the left foot back in space. Come into a high lunge and lengthen both legs. When you lengthen both legs, pubic bone to sternum lifts and lengthens and reaches. And then very slowly transition back to downward facing dog. Excuse me. Last opportunity to come into upward facing dog on the balls of the feet. If that doesn't sound like something you want to do, you come forward, you land the knees down, you come into cow pose. And then we'll all find ourselves in downward facing dog. I mean, not downward facing dog, sorry, child's pose. Again, if child's is not interesting to you or comfortable, you can come into embryo or sit on the shins. And from here, bring yourself up into a seat. And we likely all have some way to do this together at the same time, but I'd like you to find a bare bit of wall or a door that nobody will be coming through in like the next 10 minutes. Or if you have a bed nearby or a chair nearby, we're all gonna send our legs up. So if you're sending your legs up the wall, you'll bring one hip to the side. You send your legs up. I like to have a little space away from the wall. Feels better on my hamstrings. If you're sending your legs up a chair or a bed or a couch, you do the same thing, but your legs will be in a 90-degree with the backs of the calves resting on the piece of furniture. So take some time to find a place that's best for you. Yeah, and Debbie and Kelly, make sure you're close enough to the bed that you can have some bend in the knee, like a little closer, Debbie, so it can feel supportive. Nice. Okay. So I'm going to give a couple bits of cueing here. Yeah, I just saw Debbie putting something underneath your head. If it feels like that, you need some support, just need some softness. You can slide your yoga mat underneath or a towel. I would resist pillows because that's too much height. But everyone, bring your left shoulder and your right shoulder and imagine they could expand a little bit farther away from each other. And then in your mind's eye, bring your attention to your hips and imagine your left hip and your right hip could drop down into the floor even more. And maybe that involves you sort of scooching around so that you feel more supported by the floor beneath you. And those of you with the legs up the wall, there's a sort of magical angle of flexion, right? Bending of the knees so that it feels like you're not doing so much work to keep your legs up the wall. So really play with distance of seat away from the wall and the flexion or the bending of the knees so that you can feel like this is really effortless. And for just a few moments here, as I've been saying, imagine that we were going nowhere else and that this is where you had to be. And that you could sink down and trust, not anticipate. If that feels really difficult for your mind, start to count the breath. Counting the length of the inhale, matching that same count of the exhale. And the urge to move and to stretch is really strong here. So really just for a few moments, see if you can come into true stillness. Resist the fidget, or what one of my teachers calls yoga break dancing, right? Continually finding the perfect spot. Let the next 3 breaths be as expansive into the bottom tips of the lungs as possible. And then for those of you who have legs up the wall, start to let the heels drag down the wall so that the knees bend. And then some of you might have the ability to sort of, when the knees drop down the wall, start to widen the knees out. And I like to sort of catch the outer thighs with my hands and the elbows on the floor, so they're like a little kickstand. And then for those of you who have your legs up furniture, you'll just sort of walk the heels towards the edge of the furniture and let the knees drop out wide. So you're kind of in a butterfly pose, but it's really dependent on sort of your positioning here. And resist the urge to go for like a really extreme stretch, and let it be more restorative. Let it be more passive. And then again, close the eyes and start to imagine all of the ways that you could expand internally. Imagine all of the ways that you could trust the floor, the earth beneath you for support. And grant yourself permission to take up more space. Whether that means you actively move hands, arms, shoulders left to right, or you just let yourself soften a bit more. Let the eyes drop back in the skull. Let the face soften. If this feels like an appropriate place for you to take Shavasana, whether you reposition your legs or not, you may do so. For those of you who want a more traditional shape, you can draw the knees together, roll to one side, and bring yourself to lay down on your mat. But let yourself transition in a way that is appropriate for you, that is soft, that is smooth. As you transition into your Shavasana shape, when you land there, take 3 really conscious, deep breaths. And let each exhale be a release of any gripping, holding, resistance to gravity. And as you soften down, let the eyes close. Imagine the jaw could relax. And imagine that the earth could rise up to meet you. your awareness back into your body. And before you move or change anything just yet, grant yourself the immense privilege of noticing your body at rest. Of noticing your body at ease after effort. Of noticing your body safe in this environment. Of noticing your body breathing. And it's from this place of deep internal awareness that we start to breathe a little bit longer, a little bit more expansive, and bring life back in. And if you'd like to stay in your Shavasana shape, you may do so. That's the beauty of practicing at home in this way. If you want to rest further, you can just turn the video off and continue to rest. For those of you who are ready to get up, you'll make your way into a seat. Can you make your way into your seat? Feel again top to bottom, drawing away from each other, left to right, front to back, expansive. Bring the hands to touch in front of heart, gaze down over fingertips in deep gratitude to you for the ability, the willingness, and the privilege to practice. Even deeper back to the practice itself, for providing a framework so that we may not only live lives with more ease, but more awareness, more compassion for ourselves and others, more ability to recognize opposition, extremes, so that we can move and mediate from the center. Thumb knuckles the third eye center, lift the head up. From me to you and all to each other, namaste and thank you. Thank you, everyone. I will come stop the recording. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, please feel free to ask right now or email if you're not joining live.